Fighters, I'm excited to bring this episode to you today. If you're a contractor that wants to scale their business, explode a powerful culture, know when to hire a sales team, how to become a better leader, all these things that it requires to scale and grow your business, and you're going to love this interview with my buddy Brian Gottlieb. And also, I want to say that if you are a contractor that's already doing $1 million a year in top line revenue and you want to scale your business to 5 million and beyond, our War Room program is opening up here again soon. And I invite you to go to thecontractorfight.com/war-room to apply. It is application only. We're not letting everybody in. You got to be the right person who's there for the right reasons, who's willing to put in the work, be disciplined, all that good shit. But I have no doubt that when you get in there, you're going to grow your damn business in a profitable way like never before. So anyway, head to thecontractorfight.com/war-room. And without further ado, here is my interview with my buddy Brian. Fighters, today I have an amazing conversation with Brian Gottlieb. If you don't know Brian, he is an absolute beast in the home improvement space. He's sold all three of his companies for hundreds of millions of dollars. Brian, what's up? Welcome to the fight, buddy.
Great to see you, and thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been a long time coming, man, because like I said before I hit record, you've been on my radar for a minute, and I'm glad we were able to pull this off, and appreciate you carving out the time. So,
yeah, and congrats on all the great work you're doing. You make a difference in so many people's lives. It's really, really admirable.
Thanks. I appreciate that. It's so we got to get to the important stuff, though. You said you smoke cigars. What kind of cigar are you smoking, man? What's your favorite cigar?
I like a good Padron. You can't turn away a good Padron, especially the Family Reserve series. They're great.
That's awesome. That's how many you smoke a week, man?
You know, as many as I can. I'm in my cigar room, which is above our garage, attached to our home. Because if my wife ever smells cigars, I'm out of here. I'm in trouble. So.
That's funny. It's funny. My wife likes the smell of cigar. When she kisses me, she likes it. She's like, "You smell like man," And I'm like, "Well, good, because I am a man." It's funny. I don't even know the name of it. Like I'm a tequila guy. Like if I'm gonna, and I've tried cigars. I live in Colorado Springs now. The next town over is called Manitou Springs. And right by my house, there was a liquor store that had these cigars. And I just was like, "Hey, give me one of those." Right. So they were like a $14 cigar. It wasn't anything really nice, but that's what I ended up puffing on now and then. But that's cool. So, man, you got quite the story. You could probably drop a master class for us here today on scaling businesses, and I want to say I've had a problem. I just want to get this out of the way, not with you. I've had a problem with the word scale, because one of the things that concerns me is so many contractors, they're on Instagram and there's all these other gurus out there going scale your business, and it just becomes like this word that I think is overused, mainly because I see a lot of guys try to scale too soon and they end up scaling a turd and they just have bigger problems. So
correct.
Let's right out of the gate. When do you know it's time to scale a business? Let's start with that.
Yeah, I think that is the fundamental question of business. Mm-hmm. And to me, growth has to be intentional. When you fall into growth accidentally, like a lot of companies fell into growth during COVID, and all of a sudden they have all this work, they don't know what to do with it, and it's hard to keep up, and bad communication. Growth has to be intentional. And when it's time to take that next step, when you're able to predict with a level of certainty the future. I'm a big fan of forecasting out the business each month, each year, and not just me forecasting, but to have the team really dialed into forecasting. When you start to become excellent at forecasting, you can then predict the future, and then you can start throwing resources, cash at it, and other things at it, and grow very intentionally. Scaling just to grow top line revenue, that's an ego process that doesn't serve anybody. You want to make sure that, are you delighting your customer? Are you able to spend quality time with your family? Are you being a great leader for your business? And are you making money? Because the purpose of business is to make a decent profit decently.
Yeah, I think that whole profit piece I made this mistake 20 years ago or whatever it was with our painting company. I tried to scale myself to profitability.
make, make it up in volume.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting is we're in the trades. We're not like for the most part, we're not in a controlled environment where we're making widgets and, you punch the clock and you come in and like, there's so many different aspects to, I mean, the people side of things, the lead flow, I mean, all these different things. And if you're, like, for example, during the, it was prior to the recession in '08, we were getting our butts kicked in a couple things. I had to figure some things out. Long story short, we tracked all our leads, all our sales, but I tracked our closing rate. I had it filtered one day on all the projects that we had lowered our price, offered a discount, whatever it was. And the overall closing rate on all of those was way lower than our normal closing rate, which was really eye-opening. I think a lot of people think, oh, if I could just be more competitive and I can scale my business and stuff. But this is also how you get on that hamster wheel where you never have the money to reinvest back into the company, into leaders, into growth, and then you end up stuck.
Yeah, and if you ask the sales rep that sells a $500 replacement window why he didn't close something, he'll tell you it's because of price. You ask the sales rep that sells a $1,000 window when they don't close something, they'll say it's because of price.
Yeah.
You ask a Renewal by Andersen rep when they sell a $3,800 window, they'll say it's because of price. Mm-hmm. So price is just one factor. But you're right when you were talking about you have all these people and such. I think the other thing about when is it time to really take your business up a level, I think it's about alignment. Is your team aligned? Do you have the thing that makes this whole industry, this home services industry unique is 95%, 99% of everybody on your team is interacting with the customer. They're talking to the customer, they're selling they're installing for the customer, they're dealing with customers. And that means that you have to have a team that performs at a high level, both in your presence and in your absence. And until you get there, you'll be a bottleneck in the business and you'll probably not sleep at night. So once you get there, then it's say, okay, now I can take it up a notch.
Mm-hmm. We're going to dig into people here because it's in one of my talking points here. Because I know you can't scale, you can't grow, you can't get off the hamster wheel, right, if you don't have the right people.
Correct.
But before we do that, I want to go back to, what was it, 2008, 2009? Great time to start a business, by the way. When you're at a little plastic folding table with $3,000 in cash and you decided to start a company, what was going through your mind at that point?
Prior to that, I was on the road all the time as a consultant. I was just going from hotel to hotel and hotel. I just couldn't do it anymore. I wasn't seeing my family. I had to get off the road. So I decided I'm going to open up my own home improvement business. What I didn't know is during my consulting days, I kept a journal as I'd visit with companies. And I had a long list of, wow, if I ever start a business, I'm definitely doing this. And I had even a longer list of, if I ever do a business, I'm never doing this.
Never doing that. Yeah.
So it was the blueprint. But yeah, 2009, a plastic folding table with $3,000 in cash. And there wasn't a whole lot of more $3,000 of cash behind that if it didn't work. So it needed to, it was all about execution and getting a little lucky along the way. And I got pretty lucky.
What'd you do first?
For the first business, we were in the sunroom business.
Yeah.
I launched a sunroom company. My son, who at the time was 14 years old, I got this sunroom company from a company that went out of business. And I had this long list of leads printed out on a piece of paper. And when you talk about a dead lead, he would try to call them. And some of the people who heard he died. That's how old the list was.
Oh my God.
But just trying to get in the home and sell something.
Yeah.
Just trying to stay in business.
So when you started the business, you're sitting there, you got $3,000 staring at you sitting on a card table, folding table. And like, how did you spend your first week, your first month? I'm just curious, what did you do you said you bought an existing business.
I got an existing. The sunroom manufacturer had somebody that went out of business.
So they just said, here.
Yeah, I was able to take over just the market. Okay. I didn't get anything with it, but I had the territory.
Okay.
And it was, how am I going to generate a lead? Right. That was my first, how am I going to generate a lead? And so 2009 was an interesting time because a lot of advertising wasn't happening.
Right.
So I was able to cut deals on pay for performance programs. And I've still done that up until the days I sold my business, as many pay for performance marketing sources as possible. The other thing I did, by the way, early on, because what I saw a lot of companies that were in big trouble is they ran up these big marketing bills,
Yeah.
and they didn't have the money to pay it because they didn't see the results. From day one, I set up a separate bank account where I took 7% of every single check that I got, and I put it in a separate account, and that was my marketing money. And I always had marketing money to spend and prepay for things.
Oh, now you did it, Brian. Now you did it. Now you basically told people, if you want this shit to go the way you want it to go, you need to have some discipline. It's I did a live in our private community last night. I'm like, guys, the reason you're not winning at a higher level is you lack discipline. Like, just that small little act of just taking that money and putting it there is what so many people don't do, because they're stealing from that to pay their normal bills, because either they're not charging enough, they don't have the volume. I've seen guys that are like running 70-80% gross profit margins, and they're still broke because they haven't figured out the marketing piece, right? Because they're not filling. I look at all the available production days as like seats on an airplane, right? If you don't fill the seats, you're not going to make money with the flight. So
it's very true.
Yeah. What you've mentioned sales guys a minute ago. How do you know when to hire a salesperson? Just for context here, probably about 50% of our audience are remodelers, GCs, those types of guys, and then the rest are specialty guys. So I'm just, a lot of them are, like I started my first business. It was me in an $1,100 van, and my uncle threw in a 24-foot ladder, and I was in business with my cutoff jean shorts and my mesh half shirt, man. Yeah. So people often, they go, I need to hire a salesperson so I can grow my business. Yet I often see there's some other things that aren't in place. I'm curious your take on how do you know?
Yeah. So look, the first thing a business owner needs to hire to is their weakness, right? They have to hire to what is their weakness, or the thing that burns them out, so they can focus on their strengths. The whole idea of work on your weaknesses. Look, focus on your strengths, grow a business around your strengths. I think that if you're a business owner and you're on the phone with some customer because you have some production problem, and you're pulling up in the driveway of a new prospect that you got to go knock on their door, and you just got off the phone of a really angry conversation, and you're stressed out, and you're knocking on the door, and you're thinking, man, I hope there's really not much here because I got to get out of here. And it's probably time to hire a sales rep. If you can't run a full presentation because you have too much other stuff on your plate, you either need to get rid of that other stuff because a full presentation has to happen, or hire a sales rep, and that person can do a full presentation. I grew up in the sales world. Yeah. If you would have asked me when I first started the business, if you said, hey, Brian, 3 or 4 years from now, when you start to grow this business, do you think you're going to still run sales? I'm like, of course I will. I'm really good at it.
Yeah.
But, it got to the point where I was no longer an effective salesperson. It was time to replace me. And that's, but you have to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons, and the right compensation structure, and the right training behind it, and the right KPIs and the right accountability. And look, when it comes to hiring people, it's okay to be wrong. Just don't be wrong for long. So that's what I would say to that.
Yeah. So people, what's your opinion on the hardest position to hire for?
For me personally, the most difficult position to hire for is my weakness, because I'm not very good at onboarding that role. So like when I needed to go out and get a CFO, I needed to find somebody that really knew what they were doing, because I'm going to teach a CFO on how to be a CFO. I don't think so. So I think the hardest position to hire for is that which is your weakness. It's also a crucial role, and it's also important when you bring that person on that they have a loud voice inside of your business, because they're going to bring a different perspective. But look, before I sold all my businesses, I was up to 600 employees. And when I started my business, if you asked me what we were, I would have said we were a construction company. If you have asked me maybe 7 years ago, I would have said a little arrogantly, we were, well, we're a sales and marketing company that happens to be in home improvements.
Yeah.
But you asked me what allowed us to really grow. We were a training organization. We taught people how to answer the phone. We taught people how to set leads. We taught people how to close. We taught homeowners why they should do business with us. We're a training organization. And when you become a training organization with that mindset, you're no longer held hostage to the talent that's out on the street because you can grow your own talent. And then it truly becomes a game changer.
This is fresh in my brain because we have these conversations a lot inside our communities. Like, people buy into the fact that they need to hire, they want to get out of the way, they want to give ownership or delegate these things in the company. And often the bottleneck immediately is usually like, how do I get off? One guy I talked to he was sharing in our group the other day, he's doing over $1 million in sales, but he's still on the tools. And he knows that next level is going to be him. And he's on the tools running jobs, and he has a couple other employees, but like often the bottleneck for these guys are those field employees. And as you know, it seems funny. I don't know about you. You've been in the game a while as I have. As long as I can remember, there's been a labor shortage in the trades.
For sure.
I'm 54. All I heard growing up was go to college, and all this other shit.
Right.
And so what, if you could wave a magic wand over this whole skilled labor force shortage that I've seen forever, but it just seems to be the sexy topic the last 5 years, is, what does that look like? How do you fix that?
Yeah, well, I think it starts at the company level, right? Because if you think about a business is all about execution, right? You've got to be able to execute you've got to be disciplined. You've got to be able to execute with consistency, deliver a great experience with consistency, train well. And complexity is the enemy of execution. And a lot of times when you sell, today we're going to do a full bathroom model project. Now tomorrow we're going to build a deck. And now next day we're going to build a roof. Then we're going to do somebody's basement. That's a very, very difficult business to scale. So the opportunity in business is to say, what should we be doing? And more importantly, what shouldn't we be doing? Because that's what really makes a more scalable business. And by removing complexity from the organization, training becomes a whole lot easier. The more complexity you have, the more you need unicorns for sales reps and production managers and all these different roles. And unicorns are really difficult to find. So, I would start by thinking about, first of all, where are you making money?
Yeah.
Start there. What are your profitable projects? And by the way, the more complex your business is, the more difficult it is to market for as well, because the customer doesn't know who you are. So if you pick a category, look, we were, before I sold my businesses, one of my companies was a one-day bath company. We were doing 500 bath remodeling projects a month. And if somebody wanted a toilet, we would walk away from the job before we would step out of our scope of work. We would not step out of our scope. And that's simplicity.
Did you always have that discipline, or in the beginning, like a lot of people, right? You take what you can get so that you can eat and pay your bills and stuff. So I'm curious, like, when did that light switch go on for you?
Yeah. So when I started the business, we were a sunroom company, and we would sell all kinds of sunrooms, and we'd be so proud of these monster sunrooms that we sold. We didn't make any money on them. Yeah. Boy, did they sure look good. And the layers of the flooring and the drywall and all the other components that go into an addition and I found myself, when the business got to about $4 or $5 million, I found I can't get over that hump. And more importantly, we were losing ground on being great communicators and taking great care of the customer. And I met a friend of mine that was in the bath business, and I saw this shower system in his showroom. And I'm like, what the heck is this thing? And he told me about the business. I'm like, this is just too interesting. And eventually it took off, and we dumped sunrooms and stuck with windows and baths and decks.
Was that Tundraland?
That was Tundraland. Yep,
okay,
that was at
gotcha.
Yep.
And what's interesting, because you had in Arizona, you had the jacuzzi business, you had Tundraland, right, and then you had the window company, right?
Two Renewal by Anderson locations. Correct.
Okay, so again, back to what you said earlier, is when you're bouncing around doing all these different types of projects, you never get into the training mode. Your guys really never get their reps in with your processes and systems of how we do this. And I'm pointing this out for the listeners, that you had three very separate types of businesses that did pretty much one thing. each.
Correct. And
You know,
each, by the way,
yeah,
each business had its own dedicated team, had its
right.
own resources, had its own general manager, had its own KPIs.
Hmm.
We would close out a month together. So we would look at, all the different P&Ls next to each other. We would share best practices, but ultimately the business ran as its own business with its own disciplines
Hmm.
and its own level of simplicity. Correct.
All right. I don't want to get off the people thing here because I know people are the key,
Yeah.
because like you, well, I don't know, like you, I don't want to make that assumption. I wake up, my feet hit the floor and my DNA is sales and marketing, right? Like that's just who I am and how I show up. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Me
So
too.
I think the solution to every fucking problem that you have in your business is sell. Right. And like I am so not a systems person. Are you familiar with a disc profile?
I am very much
Okay,
so.
so I'm a high D, high I. I'm like
Yeah. Me
100
too.
on the D, like 85 on the I. My C, for those that are listening, like a C is like detail oriented and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like a 7 when I apply myself, okay, on a scale of 1 to 100. And my CEO, my assistant, our whole team, like pretty much our whole back end team of the contractor fight, they're all high C's.
Oh, that's great.
Okay. Um, it's great unless you're at a meeting. Anyway, I have one more question. I have one more. I'm like, Jesus, can we just pull the trigger? Anyway, so again, my solution for systems and all that shit that I don't mean shit in the bad way, but you know what I mean. Like, you want to grow, you got to systems. My solution for that is sell more, make more, and hire somebody who knows what the hell they're doing. Right? That's how I've always operated. So, but selling more, marketing more isn't necessarily going to be the thing that's going to take somebody from 4 or 5 million right now to 10 or 12 or 20 million. It's
Correct.
going to be the people thing. So what are some lessons that maybe you've learned about the people game, right? Just
Yeah. I'll
broad
give you a
strokes
couple.
here. Yeah.
Sure. I'll give you a couple. First of all, if you want to build a giant ship, if you're in the shipbuilding business and you want to build a giant ship that's going to sail across the ocean, one way to do it is you hire a whole bunch of people and teach them how to swing a hammer. But if you want a magnificent ship, first get the people to yearn for the open sea. And the more people can yearn for the open sea, the more magnificent of a ship is going to get built. And I think in business, the first thing is don't just give people a job, give them a mission. And to give people a mission, the business needs a strong culture, a strong purpose, and clear direction. So I'm a big fan of mission and vision statement because it aligns the team on behaviors and what they should be thinking about. And I think that's really important. And then you have to think about, look, I've always believed in what the acronym that I came up with is hire to ether, which is, ethical, trainable, hungry, reliable, and energetic. And look, when you're hiring a sales rep, I need a trainable sales rep. Before I would let a sales rep come in for an interview, we'd send them a 2-sentence script that they had to memorize. So they come in for the interview, and if they didn't have the script memorized, they're not going to get the job. If they're not willing to memorize a 2-sentence script,
Right.
there's no way they're going to memorize our entire sales process.
Yeah.
So, think about the role you're hiring for. Think about what you really need out of that role. DISC is a great thing to use.
Yep.
That high D, high I for a sales rep, but also, real role clarity, and then just make sure you're hiring the right people. And as I said earlier, if you hire the wrong people, you can't tolerate poor behavior in your business. Your culture is significantly influenced by the lowest level of acceptable behavior. So if you're trying to build a big business, make sure you get off of bad decisions quickly.
Can you say that definition you just dropped again?
Sure. Your culture, the culture inside of your business, and by the way, every business has a culture,
Right.
but your culture is significantly influenced by the lowest level of acceptable behavior. That which you tolerate, and it could be the upset, it could be the high performer, low culture fit that you don't want to, that you want to isolate because he's a high performer or she's a high performer, but there are a train wreck in meetings. That's your culture.
Yeah.
It's tolerating the high culture fit, the person you love but isn't performing. That frames your culture. So it's really important as a business leader that your business will become the people you hire, and the people you promote is who your business will become. Alignment around a strong culture is more important than, in my opinion, a job description.
So when you, at what point in your businesses did you, what I'm hearing from you is that you're very intentional about the culture. Okay.
Correct. 100%.
We all have a culture, just like we all have systems. It's just, are they the intentional ones, right? Like, my system for my CRM in the early days was I'd grab a scrap of drywall and write somebody's phone number on it, and throw it in my dashboard, right? So
Right.
that was a system.
That's right. Yeah, my
Um,
system today, by the way, is I take a nap at noon.
there you go. You've earned the right, man. So at what point are you getting intentional about the culture right out of the gate when you're starting a business?
So,
Or
I'm
is
sorry, say
this,
that again,
are you
Tom.
getting intentional about your company culture from day one? Or is it because like you had three monster companies here.
Yeah.
Did they all have a different culture? I'm just curious what the intention was and how you built that.
Yeah, they all had their unique culture, though they all shared the same mission statement of
Mm-hmm.
to do well and do good.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we define that as to make a decent profit decently. But look, it took me a while to realize it wasn't on when I was on a plastic folding table. I was just about how do I stay in business. It
Right.
wasn't about how do I build a big culture. I mean, but
Mm-hmm.
the minute I started adding people to the team, I realized that why should they show up at work? I used to do a stay interview with people, and a stay interview is different than an exit interview. A stay interview, I would ask people, what makes you want to come to work every day, and what would make you one day want to leave?
Mm.
Because I think it's really important that so often we have good talent that walks out the door, and doggone it, if I wish I would have known that sooner,
Yeah.
I could have maybe kept them. So it wasn't until I probably got to about 12 people on the team that I realized this business needs to go to another level. I need to get everybody aligned, and I need to provide direction on what do the next 4 or 5 years look like, so people have something to chase.
So, because you've said this twice, and I like to spell things out for all my fellow Marine Corps crayon eaters out there that are a little slower. So, you were basically going, I need to intentionally paint a picture of the future of what's in it for them if they stick around. Right?
Correct.
Am I hearing that right? Yeah.
Yeah. So if you think about a mission statement is why does your business exist, right?
Right.
Why do you exist? Our business existed to do well and also do good. Do
Mm-hmm.
well as an organization, be profitable, do good for our teammates, for our community, for our customers. A vision statement is aspirationally,
Mm-hmm.
in the future, what do you want your business to become? 5 years from now, what do you want your business to become? The first line of our vision statement was to be a world-class organization. So then we got to define, what does it mean to be world-class? What does a world-class communication look like? What does world-class sales process look like? What does a world-class installation process look like? It gave us opportunities to come up with actionable things to chase. So again, so that you're not just giving people a job, you're giving them a mission, and it's really important.
Yeah, you talk about this people thing. I couldn't even begin to count the number of really good people that I probably burned through because I was a shitty leader and I didn't do some of these things, and we just learn and we move
Yeah,
forward.
me too.
And
Me too.
yeah.
Me too.
And, one of my former partners in our sales training academy, and he's former because he's retired now. And we bring him off the bench now and then to do some stuff, but his name's Steve. Steve sold, he had North America's largest swimming pool maintenance company. He sold that like in the 90s, I think. He's in his 60s now, for several $1 million. And he was retired and this and that. Then one day, he was, I'll give you the quick here. He was teaching spinning classes at the local gym, right? In his retirement, he was like in his 30s or 40s, early 40s when he retired, right? And then he, if that, and anyway, and somehow he went to this build a pond day, and he's like, this is kind of cool. And I think around the time the market had taken a beating, he lost a shit ton of money. He's like, I'm probably going to need to start making some more money here, right? Just to be safe. And so he started a pond business and grew it, sold it to his top two guys, I think in 2020 when he officially was like, I'm done. And people are like, man, I wish I had guys like Mike and Andrew, and, that would buy my business. It came in as laborers. And he has always said he probably burned through 100 or 200 Mike and Andrews through the years,
Yeah.
Learning some hard lessons. So
Right.
I'm curious what lessons about raising people up could you share?
Yeah. So look, Tom, as you know, I sold all three of my businesses over the past couple of years. Two of the three businesses I sold for just under $100 million. In this industry, there's absolutely zero guarantee of generating a lead tomorrow or making a sale tomorrow. So any potential buyer is really buying the team, the leadership team, the bench strength, the systems, the processes. And I think the way you grow people, if I have a dog and I want my dog to sit and I want my dog to stay, I want my dog to be obedient. I don't want people on my team to be obedient. I want my people on my team to be aligned. And it's a very, very big difference. And obedience is rules and regulations and all that stuff that is really, really stressful. Alignment is that I can allow people to do their job, and I know they're going to do it well. I can inspect what they do, but they're able to really help grow the business. It's not a coincidence that, and I've had the same thing where people say, "Man, you're so lucky. You got all these great people."
Yeah,
Absolutely, 100%. Very fortunate to have the best team out there. We worked really hard on figuring out what that looks like and how do we become the best team. And myself as the leader, I had to recognize that my role, I had this epiphany. I was sitting out on my porch with my wife. My wife and I are sitting on the porch in Appleton, Wisconsin, drinking a glass of wine before I sold the businesses. And I had this epiphany that, when the community is doing well, we're at a better place. And when the business is doing well, we're in a much better place. And for the business to do well, the people have to do well. And my epiphany was this, that I can't realize my full potential until the people inside of my business first realize theirs. And it was that moment when I realized that my sole focus as the business leader is how do I help those on my team realize their potential? When I came to that awareness, that's when everything really started to change.
I love it. What do you suck at? Because I want to give people some perspective here. It's easy, I sold these three businesses and hundreds of millions of dollars and this and that. And sometimes people are like, oh, you got the fucking Midas touch with everything, right? I'm just curious
I have taken on my fair share of products that I never should have touched. Okay. In all fairness, I remember we got into kitchens, we got out of kitchens. I thought, well, we're better now. Let's get back into kitchens. And we got out of them again. I got into roofing. I got out of roofing. My issue is I believe that, you have some success with something and you think, oh, I could just keep having more success. So I get a little ahead of myself. I have to constantly remind myself that, slow down a little bit. Let's make sure that this isn't my idea, that it's an aligned team's idea. If we're going to start something new, I can be a little bit of all gas, no brake. And that can be very, very disruptive for those on my team.
I hate people like that. Literally, it's, I know for those that are on our team, sometimes that could be exhausting for them. It's that's good. I appreciate you sharing that. So if you had to start another business in the trades, and it couldn't be any of the ones you've already done, what would you do? I'm curious.
Well, kitchens, maybe. No, I'm not going to do kitchens again.
What would you do and why? Right?
Yeah. Well, I like HVAC as a business because of the recurring revenue. I think that's kind of attractive there. I like. I don't know enough about it. I just know in our Arizona home, trying to get somebody out to freaking clean out our pool is like going to the dentist. So you call all these pool companies and nobody answers their phone. If I started a pool company, I think the name of my company would be I'll Answer the Phone. And that would be, so I'm kind of interested in some of the service industries. I'm kind of interested in, but I don't want to, the idea of having to deal with Mr. and Mrs. Jones and start over with all of that is just,
It's exhausting. Yes.
So today, I'm invested in businesses. I angel invest in remodeling companies and home improvement companies. I sit on boards. I kind of like that role for me today. I don't have as much energy as I used to have, and maybe that's the reason.
Yeah. Well, I think you have the curse of knowledge. You know what it takes to get the plane off the ground, right?
Yeah.
You use all the fuel in the early days getting that plane off the ground, and like you said, dealing with Mr. or Mrs. Jones, and it's just exhausting. And let's face it, financially, you're not as hungry as you were when you started, right? I mean, we both can say that. Like it's just like, is the juice going to be worth the squeeze on the other end of this? And
that's right.
And why? I mean, why? I've already proven I can do it. And what's next, I think, is
and I don't know that I could replicate what I already did. I think it was a moment in time. I think today you have tech stacks and all these other things you need in a business and paperless contracts. And I think the cost of operations is different today. Yeah. And it was a moment in time, and that was a good chapter. It's time for the next one.
Yeah. And it's interesting you talked about the service businesses, because I often ponder this question. And, I was a painting contractor. We were doing, hundreds of projects a year. And listen, and we actually, you talk about specialization, even within the trade, we really didn't push. If we did, 400 jobs a year, maybe 30 or 40 were exteriors. When most painting companies, live for the summertime, we hated exteriors. And because you have Mother Nature, and weather, and it jacks up your schedule. And so we spent most of our marketing money and time and attention talking interior. And then the exteriors we would do would be like from our past and current customers and referrals and stuff like that. So anyway, what I realized about that trade is people don't have to do it.
Right.
I mean, now, some people would go, I have to paint this house. I would hear this all the time.
My wife would say that for sure.
So would mine. Okay. But it's not, when I mean have to, it's not electrical. It's not plumbing. It's not the water. It's not things like that. So I often come back to that same. In fact, I was looking at an HVAC company about a year ago here in Colorado Springs. And I ended up not moving ahead. That just wasn't where I needed it to be. But that's why I was after that. My eye was on it, because you have to do that shit. You need heat.
It's
you need
need based. I like need based. Right. It's a much easier sell. It's easy to drive urgency. By the way, just to back up to salespeople just for 1 second, you reminded me of something. The other time it's time to hire sales reps. Look, you always want more sales reps than leads. And the reason being, you want more sales reps than leads, because if you think about it, let's say you have 5, 6, 7 sales reps, 10 sales reps, whatever that number is, there's going to come a time when a percentage of them are not closing. And you want to intentionally run a batting order where you're retraining your bottom performers, but you're giving your top performers the leads they need to perform. So another time to hire a sales rep is when your ratio of leads to sales reps, when everybody is always busy, you're probably not being as efficient as you could be. You want more reps than leads.
Dig into that more. That's interesting. I haven't heard anybody say that before. So usually it's, and again, I'll go back to the guy who's doing $1 million or so right now, who's the salesperson in his company. He says, I need to hire a salesperson. But the problem is he doesn't have his marketing figured out. So he doesn't have enough leads to support it. And chances are that first sales rep he hires isn't going to sell as much as he is as the owner. And he's paying commission on it. So the owner ends up making less money, right? If he's already on the edge. So you know what I'm saying? Like that balance. So I've always been like, what's your plan to generate more than enough leads to grow the business? So it's just interesting. Right. You said the opposite, which I love. I love being different here. So what do you got? I'm getting educated here, man.
Of course you need a steady lead flow. And I love anything face-to-face. Look, I like to be able to make a lead. I like to canvas. I like to do all those sort of things. I like to go out and make a lead. If I can make a lead, I don't care what the economic conditions are. Yeah. I'm going to go knock a door and I'm going to make a lead and we're going to sell something. But as you start to make leads, let's say you're able to create, 6 appointments a day and you want to give 2 sales reps each 3 appointments. Well, you probably are better off served by having 3 sales reps versus 2. Because if you have 2 sales reps and one of them sucks and one of them's in a slump, all of a sudden 50% of your leads are going in the trash and you're waiting. So you want to intentionally run what's called the batting order. Yep. Look, I've looked at companies across the country. And what I'll share with you is when I look at their sales reports and they have multiple sales reps, if I pull out the bottom 30% of the sales reps, the whole business looks totally different. It looks so much better when you take out the bottom performers. So as a business, you want to intentionally always take out your bottom performers. You want more capacity in sales reps than you have leads to run. So you can intentionally run a batting order. You can intentionally have a retraining program for your bottom reps and constantly churn your batting order. So you're always getting better.
Makes sense. 100%. How do you like paying your guys?
Straight commission. Yeah. Okay. Straight commission. A little training salary along the way for sales, but straight commission. But every single person, by the way, I should make a point that of the 600 employees that worked in my businesses, everybody had some sort of a performance space and everybody had a daily KPI, every single role.
All right. So you just popped the lid on a question I want to ask you. It reminded me of something when you said that every role in the company. You set a KPI per sales guy. It's pretty simple, right? You set KPIs for, in our company, our crew leaders were responsible. They had KPIs, bring jobs in and on time, on budget, great report cards, whatever, right?
Yep.
What do you do with the admin people?
Yep. So the admin role supports some other role. That's why they're an admin, and therefore their KPI would be shared with that department. But it could be like we had our customer care team, which was an admin role that was responsible for scheduling. So one of their KPIs was our capacity against our actual filled schedule. The accounting department had KPIs on revenue collected per day. The production department had target against actual revenue, installed revenue. The marketer, the canvasser had sets per hour.
Right.
The beautiful thing about our business is every role can be drilled down to a daily KPI. That's what makes this role so special. And earlier when we first started talking about predicting a business, if you really want to grow your business, you have to be great at forecasting. It's difficult to be great at forecasting when you wait until the month is over and you look at your financials because now it's an autopsy and that patient died a month ago. Daily KPIs teach you as a business how good you are at hitting your targets. The better you are at hitting your targets, the more scalable your business becomes because the more predictable your business is.
Love it. So what have we not touched on today that you're burning to share with the audience?
Well, I've been locked away in my Scottsdale and Wisconsin home working on a book, which is pretty cool. So the book is called Beyond the Hammer. It's a fresh approach on leadership, on culture, and on building high performance teams. I'll share with you, when I started writing it, I wrote it as a leadership book, and I'm like getting halfway through this thing. I'm like, this is just another freaking leadership book. I don't want this. So I rewrote it, and now it's half of it is a parable. It's a business parable about a guy that's in the construction business, and he learns several lessons along the way. And then the back end of the book is actionable ways to implement these lessons into a business. It's designed for specifically for the home services industry. I think I'm super proud of it. We'll see what the reviews say, but it comes out on September 10th, and Forbes is publishing it. So it'll be in airports, bookstores, on Amazon. It's pretty doggone cool.
That's great. And that comes out in September, I think you told me?
September 10th. Yep.
September 10th. There you go. Yeah, we'll make sure to drop a link in the show notes and all that stuff for people. So let me just peek at my notes here, see if I'm missing something. We covered a bunch of this stuff. In addition to the book, I appreciate you sharing that. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you that would be helpful to people listening to this?
And especially for the small business owners that are just getting things, trying to figure it out. It's so easy to get so stuck in the weeds of this business, right? And it's so easy to not sleep at night. Not sleeping is the easy part, right? Sleeping is like, oh my gosh, I slept through the night. That's a big deal. And I think it's important that we always make time to be present. If we're with our wife at dinner, People ask me all the time about work-life balance.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's any such thing. I think it's
Right.
about being present wherever you are.
Yeah.
If you're in your office and having a conversation with somebody, shut your phone off and be present for that. If you're out to dinner with your wife, shut your phone off and be present with them. The more you can be present in everything you do in life, I think the more fulfilled you are and the less stressful you are. And then you're able to really, I think, make some great decisions as a business leader. Understanding what is your true role as a business leader, and it's different. The answer is different for everyone, but I guess the two most important days of your life are the day that you're born and the day you finally figure out why.
That's it. I can't believe you just said that, because last night, so I do this thing that I got from my mom. When we were growing up, whenever we would leave the house, my siblings and I'm going to fucking cry. Jesus, thinking about my mom. Anyway, she would pray us away, like until she couldn't see the headlights anymore. She did it as long as I could remember.
Love that.
And I do that with our kids.
Love
and
that.
Last night, we celebrated one of our kids' birthdays, and we had 4 of our 5 kids here for the first time in months that they'd all been in town together. Right. And they're all like 24 to 19 is the age range. And it was funny. They all kind of left at the same time, and all the taillights are going down the road. And I literally, part of the prayer was, please help them figure out why they're here. So it's just funny that you just said that, because it's fresh in my brain from last night, because I thought of that quote or whatever that saying is, right? Anyway, man, just kind of hit me. So
we should not only do it with ourselves, but we should also do it with others, right? How do we help others realize their why, realize why they're here, realize their contribution, and recognize that the sales rep is not more important than the production person, and not more important than the person knocking on the front door, canvassing a neighborhood. Yeah. That you're creating an aligned team, and everybody's important.
Yeah. The sales guys think they're more important, of course.
Of course,
but,
they do. But we want
them hey, I make it rain. You wouldn't have jobs if I wasn't here, right? Yeah, that's the whole thing. So, I don't know if you know this. I actually sold replacement windows for 4 months.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was it was my first real sales job, if you want to call it that. And before I started my painting business, I was working for my uncle on his painting crews, and then I'm like, I got to change something, and I went into sales. So, and I was leading. I was the top sales guy, like within 3 months, and then in the 4th month I quit, because it was one of those companies where the whole shill and drop thing and the story, and I got to call my uncle, and we'll see if we could throw the Cadillac windows on the production line and give you the basic window price and all that bullshit. And so I had a few months of selling windows, and my conscience couldn't take it anymore, because I worked for one of those crazy companies, man.
It can be brutal.
Yeah. My favorite sales call though was and this is where I learned the value of selling like you don't need it. Just sell like you're independently wealthy, right? Like you're not desperate with commission breath and stuff. I knock on this door, 9:00 in the morning in Joliet, Illinois. And I was hung over, man. Like I was hanging hard. And they set this stupid appointment for me. And I walk up, I'm walking up with my window, walking up the driveway, and this 80-something-year-old guy comes walking out, pointing his finger at me, and he's like, I told the lady on the phone I wasn't buying anything and not to send anybody. And I got up close to the house, and he said that, and I just took my window and I chucked it into the yard. I just threw it in the grass. And he looked at me, and I go, I don't give a shit if you buy a window or not, but whatever the hell you're cooking in that house smells amazing. He goes, his whole demeanor changes. He goes, oh, that's my homemade turkey chili. Come on in. You got to try some. And he's an old Air Force vet. I'm a Marine Corps vet. We start shooting the shit. An hour and a half later, we're in the basement that old brown paneling basement, that it was big in the day.
Yeah, it's great.
And we're drinking Bacardi and Cokes, eating turkey chili, and writing up a contract. So
That's great. That is the best. Oh, that is the best.
That was my window experience, man. It was it was rough. Well, Brian, I appreciate you you hanging with us here today, giving so much of your time. I look forward to reading your book when it comes out, and to whatever your next chapter is, no pun intended, with where you're going now that you've sold your 3 companies. It'll be good to watch you continue to dominate, because how you do one thing is how you do everything. And man, I really appreciate you helping out the fight community here.
I appreciate you having me on again. You make such a huge difference, such a positive impact in the lives of others, and the entrepreneurs that are listening to this or watching this. Look, this is a great industry. It doesn't matter what kind of car people drive. It doesn't matter what kind of education they have. They can have a career beyond their wildest dreams, and you as a business owner can help facilitate that journey. And it's a really cool thing. It's really we're all quite fortunate to live in this world here.
Yes, we are. It's a lot of good in this world. So where do people find you, learn more about the book, all that other stuff?
My website is briangottlieb.com, Brian Gottlieb, GOTTLIEB.com. There's a homepage where you can sign up for the book when it's coming out. I'll send out an email, let everybody know the book's ready. But you can always find me. I'm speaking at random conferences all over the country all the time. So
there you go. I love it, man. I love it. We'll get that in the show notes. Appreciate you being here. Everybody rate the show, share the show, go sign up for Brian's book. And with that, we are out of here. Have a great day. Keep kicking ass. You guys rock. We got to roll.